This is the BYD Tang L EV, and it doesn't really look like much, does it? What if I told you this family SUV here has over 1,000 horsepower and 1,000 kilowatt charging speeds, 400 kilometers in just 5 minutes? Starting to sound a little bit more interesting? Welcome to EV.com. So this EV here has the practicality and look of a family SUV, but the performance of a McLaren. But having driven this for a couple of days, I have to say it's a little bit of a contradiction, which I will talk a little bit about later. But should you get one? Well, let's get into it. So let's start with the look of this. And I actually think for a BYD, the color, the design, everything is kind of quite toned down. It's actually very sensible as far as BYDs go. I feel like as BYD has these much more global ambitions, they're starting to realize they need to tone down their designs if they want everyone to like them. The brand has never really gone with subtlety, but I can feel it more with this. So softened styling, a lot less aggressive. Maybe this is to make them more family friendly, more like a Disney character. I don't know. That is not to say it looks bad at all. It's definitely less divisive than some of the other designs, but we still have this kind of familiar face here at the front. But this is not called the dragon face anymore. It's called the long face, which means dragon in Chinese. Okay, maybe that wasn't worth mentioning. So moving down the side, and this L version has a lot different, but actually it is longer, 17 centimeters longer than the standard version. And at just over 5 meters in total length, it is longer than something like a Xiaomi U7. The difference is, this is a 3-row SUV. It doesn't really look like it from the outside. Personally, I think it's a kind of faux 3-row, if I can say that. So it does have 3 rows. I'm not sure how you'd want to use the back row though, but we'll talk a little bit about that later. We have some design elements that make it look smaller. We have some cladding at the bottom. We have some creases everywhere. Some of these are just for show, but they do help to bring in the size of this thing. So at the back here, and it's definitely more of like the BYD styling we are used to. This kind of full-length LED light bar is definitely recognizable. No build your dreams, just BYD here. That's obviously them thinking globally. I do like this intertwined light design as well. I think that looks really nice. We do have a wiper underneath here at the back, which some of you will be happy about. And of course, we have to put the 0 to 100 time on the back, which is 3.9 seconds. And this says Tianshan Jiyan. So this does have BYD's God's Eye B. So that's D-Pilot 300, I believe, which we'll talk a little bit about later. So if I open the trunk, we'll have a look what is, or should I say isn't, inside. I mean, some people would call that a trunk. Apparently this is over 500 liters of space in with all the seats up, which I don't really believe, to be honest. For me, it looks more like a 300. We have some space here. I mean, for your shopping and stuff, it's probably enough. But if I was to use this, and I think for most people, you would probably have these two down almost all the time. Because if you put these two down, they do fold flat. So with the third row down, we have 960 liters of space. So this is kind of like a very, very big trunk for a kind of standard SUV. And if we go even further and put the second row seats down, we have 1,960, so almost 2,000 liters of space. So lots of space here. And we've got some space under there for tools. And one extra little surprise for this car is that it does have a frunk, a good size frunk, 136 liters, and it's a nice square shape, so it's definitely very, very usable. My only problem is if you have 7 people in this car and they all have a bit of luggage, maybe let's say a carry-on suitcase, there's no way you're going to be able to fit these inside here. Of course, we do have a roof rack. You can have roof storage on this car. So that's why I say this Tang L, while it's a 7-seater technically, I would say it's more of a 5-seater with 2 emergency seats. Short-term, quick trips, 7-seaters, absolutely fine. Anything more than that, I think it's a no-go. So there's so much that is practical and sensible about this car, but at the same time, some things which are just ridiculous. So although this car looks quite tame, well, as tame as a BYD can look anyway, in some areas it is just an absolute monster. So this was one of the first production models to come with the BYD's kind of new at the time Super E platform. So that's a 1,000-volt battery, super fast charging times. Of course, we have previously reviewed a lot of cars that have 800-volt architecture. You know, some Zeekas, you know, XPeng are famous for one of the first production kind of cheap models that had 800-volt architecture. So now it seems like BYD want the standard to be 1,000-volt, not 800-volt. So 1,000-volt battery architecture, 10C, means incredible charging speeds, which we'll get onto a little bit later. But as well as these great charging speeds, it also allows for greater discharging speeds. So this actually affects the performance of this EV. So this today is the dual motor variant of this Tang L EV, and it comes with 810 kilowatts of power and 860 Newton meters of torque. So this family practical electric SUV has 1,000 horsepower. You try and explain that, because I can't. This means 0 to 100 in 3.9 seconds. If you ever forget that, you can just check it, because BYD wrote it on the back for you. So that's quite rapid, but actually 1,000 horsepower, you think it could actually be a little bit faster. You know, the Xiaomi U7 has less horsepower, but it still has a 3.23 second 0 to 100 kilometers an hour. So why is this? Well, I think it's because this car is actually very heavy. And I think all of this additional tech, this 100-volt architecture, we have dual charging ports. I think this has tended to weigh the car down quite a lot. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get back to the family-friendly SUV. So here we go, onto one of my favorite topics, which is BYD interiors. Well, I have good news, which is that they are getting better slowly. We have lots of soft touch materials. It actually feels quite premium in here, and actually quite understated. Usually I think there's a lot of going on. We have very minimal piano black, which I think a lot of people will be happy about. I think this is an improvement from something like the Sealion 7. We've got Nappa leather on the front seats and the steering wheel here. Seats are 10-way adjustable for the driver. We've got base cushion extension on both sides here. We've got heating, ventilation and massage in these front two, as well as the two in the back. So we have lots of comforts in here. They have definitely, at least in the center console here, tuned down the buttons a little bit. I still think they could stand to lose a few more. In the middle here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I would like to see this down to 5 or under. But otherwise we have a very clean look. We still have a start and stop button in the middle here, which drives me mad about BYDs. It's an EV. You park the car, you get out, you lock it, you walk away. But no, not in a BYD. You have to press the stop button, even if it's an EV. And I understand this is probably something left over from their IC or even their hybrid kind of engineering, but it's confusing. BYD is the only brand that really does this, so this is something they need to address. Why am I starting and stopping an EV? There's nothing to start and stop. Anyway, what do you think? Make sure you let us know in the comments. So 15.6-inch center screen here, but this one doesn't rotate. So again, this is another sign of BYD calming down, realizing that a lot of people don't care about certain things, so we can just remove those functions from the car. It's very quick and very easy to use. Over here we have a 10.25 digital instrument cluster here. I actually really like this. It probably is leaning towards a little bit of the information overload, because there is a lot on here, but I do like the fact that when you're driving you have your navigation, you even have a map, a very detailed map on here as well. So you never really need to look in the middle as driver, which I think is essentially what it's supposed to do, right? We've got some sockets underneath here and a decent sized glove box over there. But there are some things which I feel like this interior is a little bit rushed, you know, like over here, this looks like a little bit bare. Up here, we can see there was supposed to be a glasses case or a handle, and they decided to, I don't know, save money or what. We do have a glasses holder here in the middle, so I don't know what's going on there. But at the same time, we have a mini fridge. So we don't have a handle, but we have a mini fridge. So it's kind of like you've got two ends of the spectrum here, the very luxury and the not even the basic type of thing. This is not the only one in here. We actually have one right here as well. This one is tiny. You could fit like 4 small cans in there. This one's a little bit bigger. Why do you need both? Why? For me, it would have been better if this was just kind of like your standard box, you know, maybe a couple of charging ports, chuck your stuff in there. I think that's more practical for most users. I don't need to have one fridge, let alone two in my car, but maybe you disagree. Make sure you let us know in the comments. But I think generally speaking, BYD is getting there. It is moving in the right direction with its interiors. The steering wheel still has a lot going on, but I do like the more simplified look. And I feel like they're toning things down a bit. It's not about more buttons and bigger screens. One thing I do like is that there is actually a boot opener button down here at the bottom, like a quick release boot button, a physical one. I think that's a really good idea. And we do have physical air vents, which I think a lot of people will be happy about, although these ones don't really feel super good quality. But yeah, moving in the right direction for BYD. So in the back here, as I can understand now why it's called an L, because this has got loads of space. I'm 197 centimeters, and for me, I haven't moved the seat. It's been in the default position, and I've got 3 or 4 inches in front of my knees here. They're not too bad, pretty comfortable overall. These seats are angle adjustable, so we can go from here, which I don't know why I'd want to sit like that, to here. And then we do have some rake. So forward, can I get far forward? Here is the maximum, all the way back to here. So I can actually give myself even more legroom if I want to. So it's a bit annoying that it's manual adjustments. Okay, you're not going to be adjusting it a lot, but the fact that we have a fridge and we have massaging, heating, ventilation, but yet it's still manual adjustment kind of baffles me a little bit. So here we do have our fridge, which can be opened. So it goes from -6 in the cooling mode all the way to 30, 40, 50 degrees in the heating mode, so you can get your stuff nice and toasty. And one extra thing, which is this full-length sunroof, which is great, and the fact that it has a closable blind, I know some of you guys are going to appreciate it. In the middle here, not much, couple of drinks holders, bit of storage there, no charging. We have a Type C and a USB Type 2 here, and look, second row does get the grab handles. As for the third row, I'm not going to get in there today because I like my legs, but I'll show you the process of getting into it. And this is just another reason why I don't think it's a very serious 3-row vehicle. You have to do an old school, like crank the chair forward and slip in behind it. It's not very easy to do. Anyway, let's get back to driving. We have brute force power, but do we have SUV comfort? So in terms of suspension, we have double wishbone in the front and a 5-link on the rear, as well as the DSUS system. The result of this is a drive which is perfectly comfortable, as is kind of typical of a BYD. The steering is very kind of like Nerf. I mean, I've been driving this in sports mode today. It's kind of better, but the emphasis is on ease of drive and comfort. I kind of feel like they had felt pressure to put this tech in a production model, and it just so happened that this car was coming out and they said, all right, let's get this Super E platform into this Tang L EV. And it's a little bit of a, like I said, a little bit of a mismatch, because we have this family SUV, comfortable, practical, sensible, and then we have this battery architecture and the resulting power and performance. Of course, it's always nice to have a little bit of power, you know, you never know when you're going to need it, and you can't really feel there's heaps and heaps of power when you're driving it. Even in sports mode, you really have to put your foot down in order for it to start, you know, showing you what it's really capable of. And I think for most people, you're never really going to want to go down that hole anyway. Of course, this does have BYD's God's Eye B, which is D-Pilot 300, I believe. We're not going to review it today. We have a separate video reviewing that in a Sealion 7. You can check the link above if you want to watch that. So all models of the Tang L EV come with a 100.5 kilowatt-hour LFP blade battery. So this is their new Super E platform, the new 100-volt architecture. So this will give a CLTC range of either 600 or 670 kilometers, depending on rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive version. These are kind of pretty acceptable numbers for the class, I think. So let's talk quickly about the charging on this car. So this is no ordinary battery inside here. In fact, the battery is probably one of the biggest selling points as to why you would consider this car. So this is one of the first production models to have BYD's flash charging battery. So the charging current can reach 1,000 amps and charging rates can get to 10C, both of which on release were world records. So if you can find a good charger, you can have 1 second adding 2 kilometers of range to this vehicle. Of course, this is at peak charging speeds, not for the whole charge of this car. I'm not going to test the charging today because we've done this before. If you want to see that video, click the link above. So I did tech check and they were correct on their estimates. However, if you're talking about a full charge from 0 to 100, still going to take you around 20 minutes, which is still very, very fast. So that 1,000 kilowatts is at its peak amount, which is probably from something like 10 to kind of 40 or 50%. However, as you can see, we have a charging port here. This has AC and DC charging. If I come around to the other side of this car, we have another charging port, which has DC charging. So as a little bit of a workaround, it allows you to double gun it. Yes, you can stick 2 guns in this car and have them both charging your battery at the same time. I like this idea. It feels like a solution to a China problem. I'm not really sure how you guys overseas feel about this, if this is something which is useful for you. Maybe it's hard enough to find 1 charger, let alone 2 that are of a good charging speeds. So let me know if you think that is a useful feature for you. In terms of battery, this thing really is ahead of its class. Since the release of this, we have seen Zeekr actually release a 900 volt battery with 12C charging, capable of 1,140 kilowatts of charging speed. A great show of tech, useful in the real world. I don't know. I think in terms of efficiency, I mean, I've been driving very carefully and I got 17.5. So I think realistically, if you're talking about mixing highway and city, you're approaching 19, 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So the Tang L EV for me is a little bit of a contradiction. So in some areas, it is miles and miles ahead of the competition. We have incredible battery technology, we have incredible charging speeds, we have great performance, but at the same time, it is also lacking in some areas as well. As mentioned, this should be going to some overseas markets. Would you consider this Sealion 8 if it came to your market? It might be a little bit cheaper than something like a Sealion 7, but does it offer as much? Make sure you let us know what you think in the comments below. Be sure to give us a like and a subscribe. I'll see you next time.